I'm Andy Baumgartner for Sports and More, and rarely do I get nervous, but this man to my right was my hero growing up. My opinion, he's the greatest pitcher at least since Lefty Grove. But Sandy, I'm going to start out 1952, I believe, freshman basketball at Cincinnati. You played with Tony Trabert and Jack Twyman.
Well, I don't think it was 52. It was 1953, late in 53, after I graduated high school. Jack was a senior at that time. I think I was a freshman. I didn't play with them. I scrimmaged against them, and Tony had just come out of the Navy. He'd been in the Navy for 2 years and come back to school at Cincinnati.
Okay, that was in the NBA guidebook last year in one of those Did You Know categories. Last time I was down here in Florida, we talked about Cincinnati basketball and the incredible fact that they won 2 national championships, but after their greatest player, Oscar Robertson, had graduated.
Well, they had some good players, I'm sure, even after Oscar left. I really never got to play with Oscar. I got to see him play a lot. It was hard not to watch him play. They were winning, and Oscar was on television, and might have been one of the greatest guards of all time, along with Jerry West and Cousy, and a lot of people. But Oscar's definitely one of the greatest players I've ever seen.
And another fellow, 32, Magic Johnson. Have you seen him play? I know you love hoop.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess he's definitely a guard. I just never think of him as a guard. He's such a big man, but yeah, he could be the greatest of them all. But I think in each day and age, when you see somebody play, you get swept away and you think they're the greatest you've ever seen.
All right, I think I did that with you, but I really don't think anyone's matched you. But I won't, let you talk that much about yourself. I'll let the records speak for themselves. Starting out in the early years when you struggled, and then maybe 1959 when you turned it around a little, an 18 strikeout performance and the help of the Sherrys.
Well, in 1959, it didn't really turn around that much. Yeah, I had, an 18 strikeout game, but I don't think any one game is that important. I think a good year and team winning would be a highlight as far as I'm concerned. Throughout my career, I'd have a good game and a bad game and this and that. So I think for a professional athlete, consistency is what you're striving for, and the good years are much more important than any one game.
That's for sure, and our camera person, Amy, focusing in on both of us. Of course, in 59, you pitched in your first World Series, showed signs of things to come, lost a tough one to Bob Shaw, 1-0.
Right. Well, if you're in the big leagues, doesn't matter how well you pitch on any given day. You're pitching against a big league pitcher, and you can be outpitched. And Bob did that day. He beat us 1-0. I think in the third or fourth inning, had runners on first and third and 1 out, and decided to go for the double play instead of saving the run, figuring in the Coliseum you're going to score some runs, but we didn't. He pitched a great ball game, beat us 1-0.
1-0. Same thing happened to the Giants in 62. A run scored on a double play, and that's the only run of the game when McCovey lined out. A little bit about the Coliseum and the fact that you were a left-hander. It had to hurt you, Sandy.
Well, I don't think it hurt that much. As long as you've got something to work with, and the Coliseum had a very big right field and right center, and I don't think that was as big a problem as just wasn't ready to pitch in the big leagues yet.
All right, that's true. Now we'll turn it ahead to 6 of the greatest years in history. Start with 61, which I don't recall that well. I know you were about 18 and 13, but did you feel yourself turning it around maybe in 61? Very good numbers that year.
Yeah, I think 1961 was the first year I'd say that there was any consistency. It was also the first year I pitched with any consistency, where, in the past I always felt like I'd go out for one start and then not pitch for a couple of weeks, which is a hard way to be consistent, especially if you're a power pitcher or still a young power pitcher who's a little unsure of his control anyway.
All right, quickly, 1962. First year, you pitched a no-hitter. You pitched 4 no-hitters in 4 straight years. The no-hitter against the Mets, but more important, before you got hurt, your little circulatory problem with your finger, you were 14 and 5 and just overwhelming that year.
Well, that might have been the best start I've ever had in that year, and it was interesting what happened. The late Pete Reiser, who was one of my favorite people when I was playing, was coaching with the Dodgers, and we were talking, and I was not a great hitter. That's an understatement. And he said, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to hit left-handed and protect your left arm. And I said, you might be right, Pete. And I tried it one day. First day I tried it, first time up, I was jammed with a fastball. It was right on the fist. Didn't think anything of it, but evidently it crushed or broke an artery, or did damage to an artery. And it took about a month or month and a half after that, constantly the circulation getting worse and worse before I missed the rest of the year. And I regret missing the rest of the year for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is we wound up in a playoff and ended up getting beat by the Giants.
All right, and people can look it up in the 5 dominant years, especially the 5 dominant years. The 3 years Sandy stayed healthy, 63, 65, and 66, the Dodgers won the pennant, 2 times the World Series. First time was 1963. What a year, 25-5. The records aren't important, 306 strikeouts. Most important, wins in games 1 and 4 of the World Series against the vaunted Yankees.
Well, yeah, but, people, forget that we gave the Yankees only 4 runs in that whole series. I gave up 3 of them. So Don and John and Ron Peronowski, who relieved John in Game 2, all did great jobs. And, we had good pitching that year. And as they say, in a short series, good pitching does help you. And in a short series, you don't need a lot of pitchers. And it was just a good year. It was a fun year. It's fun to win. And when you win the World Series, that's even more fun.
Okay, certainly. Drysdale, the 1-0 win in Game 3, and we've interviewed both John and Don. 64, you get hurt, 19-5. So now 65, in my opinion, your greatest and most important year, because there was a lot of doubt about whether you'd pitch again. And I remember your first start, I think, on a Sunday. It may have been against the Mets. Tell me what you had to go through, soaking the elbow in ice, and maybe what you were feeling after 64.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know what would happen after 64. I missed the last month of the season and just sort of didn't throw again. I tried to throw, went on a road trip to St. Louis and tried to throw the last week, and it just filled up with fluid again and didn't know what was going to happen, so I decided, okay, just rested all winter. Came to spring training in 65 and really felt great, and the arm was good, had a good spring. And I made a trip on the west coast of Florida. I forget exactly where the White Sox were training at that time. I think I pitched against the White Sox. I think I got beat and pitched 9 innings, and I was really happy with it. I got beat 2-1 or whatever it was, but the score didn't matter. I pitched 9 innings, everything was fine, and I thought, okay, this is all over with, and woke up the next morning, and for the first time it had swollen up again, and I didn't know what would happen, and went back to Los Angeles, saw the doctors, and talked about pitching every 5th day instead of every 4th, and this and that, and started icing after I was throwing. I pitched, I think my first start was in Philadelphia. I pitched there and went 9 and started this icing program. And strangely enough, in 65 was the first time I'd never missed a start, even though, didn't think that was going to happen. But the icing, I think, helped the problem that I have. Other pitchers had iced in the past, and I never liked it, and I never would. And I still never iced my shoulder in all those years. But the soaking in ice evidently kept it from swelling. As long as it didn't swell, I could pitch.
All right, and what pitching you did that year in 65, you won 29 games total. You won the All-Star game, even though you didn't pitch that well in it. You won 2 games in the World Series, 2 days rest, 7th game of the World Series. Shutouts in the 5th and 7th games of the World Series. I don't think that's ever been done, but the most important game, the ultimate game, Game 7. Tell me about that one.
Well, it was the 7th game of the World Series. It was one of those days where I had a decent fastball early in the game, not a great one. Never had a good curveball all day. And about the 5th or 6th inning, I thought I had my good fastball, and just John and I just said, hey, that's enough curveballs. We may throw it once or twice, and we may not. And if we do, it's not going to be over the plate. And just tried to pitch with the fastball, and I was lucky that day. I made good pitches, and it worked out.
All right, we're going to get to 2 final questions, but you mentioned you weren't a good hitter. That's true. But I'll never forget a paper was dropped in front of a door, and I read it, and it said you got the winning hit, and it was against the Mets. Why don't you tell us about it? It was a midweek game, I think in 65.
I don't even remember it.
Ron Taylor was the pitcher? I know you remember it.
Right, okay, yeah, that's right. It was 9th inning or something like that. Probably didn't hit it very hard. It probably went between 2 people, and it was the winning run.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, even great pitchers like yourself always take pride in hitting. and
Not
especially...
exactly a highlight of my life.
Okay, Sandy, I know this one may have been 66. It turned out to be the last game you ever won. Last regular season game, you needed it. Dodgers needed it to win the pennant. You struggled, but you held on in Philadelphia.
That was a highlight for me. I knew that that was my last year, and we came down to a doubleheader on the last day of the season, having to win one game to win the pennant. And we lost the first game, and I started the second game, and actually I felt pretty good. I didn't struggle till the end, and it wasn't so much a struggle as I lost track. I thought we only had 3 runs when I gave up 2, and I thought I was in a 1-run ball game. I just sort of lost track of the scoreboard, and I looked up and I said, "Oh, I've got it. You know, it's 5-2. I still had a 3-run lead." And then after that, it was no problem. But you know, it was an important game to me because I knew it was the last one I was going to pitch, and it was very important to me that we win the pennant that year.
All right, and Sandy, you've provided me with so many great thrills. 65, leaving Hebrew school, Harry Goder. Knew I was not going to a doctor's appointment, but going home to watch the game. He was a Dodgers fan, and he said, just make sure you hold the lead with Sandy. Sandy, once again, thank you for joining us on Sports and More.
Andy, thank you.